Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Current and Future Leaders. Thanks so much for joining us. I am Jason Seymour. I am the spokesperson for the U.S. mission to ASEAN. And today we have a special guest, and we are going to be talking about World Press Freedom Day, which is May 3rd. So, welcome to the show, Rio.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And for our audience, this is Rio Tuasikal, and you come to us with a extensive history as a journalist, and you have lots of ideas and insights to share with us about misinformation and disinformation and press freedom and why journalists are so important. There's so
Mhm.
much we want to get to, but we want to start with you. I'd like you to tell our audience a little bit about who you are and about your work as a journalist.
Hi everyone. My name is Rio. I'm from Indonesia. So I've been working as a broadcast journalist for 8 years now, covering Indonesia and Southeast Asia, mainly for international publications, and also international publications for Indonesian audience. Um, I currently work for the Voice of America. It's a public broadcast third agency of the United States. So uh,
Mhm.
today I'm here.
You work
Really
you work for
happy.
all these different publications. Do you always work in English? Do you sometimes get to work in your native language,
Right.
Indonesian?
Mhm. Well, I started as Indonesian journalist. I mean, I write in Indonesian language. I sometimes write in English, but most of my works are still for Indonesian audience. So yeah, it's in Bahasa Indonesia.
And how did you end up working for Voice of America?
Well, I started my career as a radio journalist in Jakarta, and then I had the opportunity to get this broadcasting fellowship in Washington, D.C. in 2017. It was from a VOA to get the experience of 1 year fellowship in the at the VOA headquarters. After that, going back to Indonesia, I continue working with VOA until today.
Hmm. What's an interesting difference between working as a radio journalist and a print journalist?
To be honest, I started as a journalist because I'm passionate about writing. I wasn't really confident about my voice. I wasn't really confident about
Hmm.
my, showing up in front of camera, like doing a reporting. Um,
Hmm.
but maybe it's just circumstances. I got my first job at the radio, and I had to really practice, really rehearse my broadcasting voice.
Hmm.
um, so yeah, I think that the difference is like the storytelling style, the text, because of the medium, the nature of the medium. It's more analytical. It's more abstract thinking. Help us to think. Um, really big issues, but for like radio, we do it like more conversational. We do it more simple, briefly. We don't do many statistics. I think those are the main difference between um, print and broadcast in my experience.
Well, also on radio journalists, people are listening to the program live, so they have to catch it very quickly. Whereas for people who are reading, print journalism, the individual can read at his or her own
Yeah,
pace,
they can
reread the
always go
material.
back. Yeah,
Radio is fast, exactly.
yeah, yeah.
So one thing that is the same though for print journalists, radio journalists, television journalists is that they occasionally will run up against challenges in being able to provide accurate reporting, and those challenges can come from all kinds of places.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, sometimes they come from government restrictions, but they
Hmm.
can also come from people on the ground who are upset about what you're reporting. And I know you have a personal story of one of those types of challenges. So if
Hmm.
you could share that story with us now.
Yeah, so I was covering this demonstration of a ultra conservative religious group towards a religious minority. So I was covering the demonstration. And because some of the protesters started saying, like, um, the how do I say, the hate speech and
Hmm.
uh, violence, like they suggest to do violence towards the minority groups. So I
I
start
see.
direct my camera towards them as my natural responses, but then they wasn't happy, of course, because I record them, and then they shouted at me, and because they were like in like 3 or 4 people in distance from me, so this man called like his peers around me to grab my clothes and to grab my waist and my neck, and they wanted to beat me. It was so shock, and I never had that experience before.
Hmm.
Um, I then tried to move to to I asked the police to give me protections, so I moved behind police barricade and they protected me. So yeah, that was pretty intense. I never had that experience in my life. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, in that case, the police protected you, which is what we would hope that they would do.
Oh yeah, well, thank
Wow.
God.
And
Yeah.
were you able to complete your report?
Yeah. Even though like some of my peers also covering the same events, they were yeah worried about me and asked me like,
Hmm.
"Are you okay?" And they for some reason my editors know the event, and my editors just yeah check my conditions if to see if everything's all right. So
Hmm.
yeah, it was fine, but yeah, it adds one more case to the
Hmm.
the um, the statistics of violence
The,
towards journalists in Indonesia.
There are so many challenges for journalists, and obviously, there are many entities. It could be an individual, it could be a group, it could be a government. They're not always happy to have their story covered, even if the story is covered accurately. So, journalists run risks all the time. And of course, every year we learn of journalists who have actually been killed attempting to tell their story and cover a, a situation truthfully and
Mhm.
ethically. They could still be harmed.
Yeah, exactly. Not everyone's happy if truth being exposed.
Hmm.
Well, that's
Hmm.
the basic role of journalism to tell the
Hmm.
society what the truth is. So
Hmm.
yeah, in Southeast Asia, of course, we know some cases where journalists being killed or being arrested and
Hmm.
sent to jail for exposing crimes or injustice. Well, for instance, in Indonesia, we have one journalist named Udin, which was killed 25 years ago because he wrote extensive reports on corruption cases in 1996. And now the case is still unsolved. And the Indonesian regulation also restricts the age of the case, so we cannot um, file it to the court again because it's been 25 years old. It's an old case and unresolved. So it's just one of many tens or even hundreds of cases across Southeast Asia.
Hmm. And let's talk about that a little more. This week is, as I mentioned, World Press Freedom Day. Well, World
Mhm.
Press Freedom Day was on May 3rd. And the Secretary of State and the President of the United States have made many comments about information. disinformation, misinformation, the need for accurate information. And they've been talking a lot about Ukraine and Russia and the People's Republic of China. But there's also a very important story to be told about Southeast Asian nations. And I know you have some insights to share with us, particularly about something called the World Press Freedom Index.
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, every year the international organizations called reporters. Reporters Sans Frontières in French, RSF, Reporters Without Borders, publish annual index measuring the press freedom across the globe. So they measure several indicators such as government regulations, um, and Southeast Asian nations, sadly, unfortunately, are still um, in the orange or red zone, meaning that it's the press is highly restricted or half restricted. So Indonesia, for example, rank um, 117 um, of 180 countries. Um, Vietnam, Singapore, Philippines is also orange. Vietnam is red. Yeah,
Are any Southeast Asians in the top 100 or top 50?
yeah. There's only one Southeast Asian nations, which is Timor Leste,
Hmm.
ranked Big 20, 13 or 17. Yeah, Big 20, rank.
Hmm.
Um, it's green. It's like yeah, it's just a green map in the
Hmm.
middle of like red and orange nations. So
Hmm.
it's a very interesting to see such a young nation could ensure the system of the press is protected, and yeah, could climb up to the rank of Big 20 in the world. So in Southeast Asia.
What are some of the steps that the ASEAN member states, which are all not in the top 100 on this list, what are some things that could change in these nations which would help it to get a better rank? Some specific
Mhm.
policies? What
Mhm.
needs to change?
I think the index itself is really highly shaped by two things. The first one is government regulations,
Hmm.
information censorships, the the control of informations um, really
What what
undermine the
kind
sport.
of what kind of information are some of these countries censoring? Perhaps you could give a specific example from Indonesia or other
Yeah.
countries.
Well, in Indonesia, we have the internet law that stipulates about libels and slanders, but um, most of the times this law is being used to criminalize um, critical voices. So, for example, like one journalist found from an investigation that this politician had this nepotism or hidden cases, and he or she exposed that, and then the politician, of course, didn't like that. So the politician could, by this law, um, showing this journalist or media, saying it's a character assassination or something like that, and the court will proceed the case, which is highly problematic because it should be ideally the politician prove give the evidence whether or not the claim is true or not. But instead, the politician just using this law to, criminalize journalists or even activists to the court. Um, the second aspect, though, is the violence towards journalists. We know that in some countries in Southeast Asia, in Myanmar, for instance, there's a military government, and in the Philippines, the government has been restricting a lot of coverage about the drug policy there, and we know that some journalists that aren't afraid of exposing the extrajudicial killings, for instance, have been arrested or even threatened to be um, they're not allowed access to government buildings for covering press events. So those are the two things I think. Like the how to improve the scores is to, I think, to review the law in each country, and the second thing is to not using the state apparatus in restricting the work of journalists. I think those are the two main things that should be done immediately to improve the score. Yeah.
And how do, speaking about yourself personally or your colleagues, how do you navigate being a journalist, trying to get the truth out, trying to cover a story with concerns about potential restrictions? How do you find that balance?
Oh, well, it's really challenging. It's really hard to navigate, actually. The 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 fundamental things that needs to be done, of course, we need to seek verification from all sides that we cover. The other thing is to really verify our sources, whether it's claims from activists, studies, or research, for instance. We have to verify those before publish anything to the public.
Hmm.
Otherwise, it will be very risky. It will be very irresponsible to publish such things without verification, really rigorous verification disciplines. So yeah.
You have so much to think about as a journalist, trying to get the truth of a story, trying to be ethical with your professional conduct, and then you you want to just be thinking about that. You don't want to have to be thinking about restrictions, but it's a reality in many, many countries that you
Yeah.
do. Now, I
Mhm.
should have mentioned that my the a couple questions ago was inspired by a question that we received from the audience.
Oh.
So just
Mhm.
sharing with the audience, if you do have questions, please share them with us. If you're not watching this live, you're watching it on YouTube or Facebook or something else later, you can still put a question in the comments because we can respond and we can get our questions to Rio. We
Mhm.
can get the questions we received from you for to Rio. But I want to pause here because I know you have some photos that you would like to share with the audience. So let's take a
Yeah.
look at what you brought today. So if I could have my assistant bring up those photos. So please tell us what we're looking at with this first photo.
So this was the Global Investigative Journalism Conference held biannually, and that year in 2019, it was in Hamburg, Germany. Um, this was the closing event of 1 week of conference, and this event is highly prestigious among journalists globally, I would say, because the most important figures in media outlets across the globe from many parts of the world are there to make a joint statement, and that's the statement of that year is to say
Mm-hmm.
journalism is not a crime because in many parts of the world, the works of journalism have been um, politically accused of oh, it's not accurate, oh, it's a slander, it's a libel, and other things. Oh, it's misinformation, it's disinformation. No, journalism is not a crime. Journalism is the the work of exposing truth, and it's really crucial to our democratic society. So that's really powerful journalists on the stage, using the
Well,
banner.
with greater freedom of press, you'll have more journalists, more media sources. So if a journalist is publishing a story that is not true, the other journalists will pile on and say, you can't trust this journalist. So
Yeah,
you don't need the government to turn it into a crime. Journalists will regulate themselves. This is something they do. Hmm.
yeah,
Interesting.
and the media industry is really relying on the credibility and the trust from the
Hmm.
audience,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
if they publish any inaccurate information, and they will lose the
Hmm.
trust from the public, they will lose the money immediately, and then it's really it's really almost impossible to recover the public, the trust from
Hmm.
the public. So they need
Hmm.
to be really extremely careful about it.
And it's very important. Anyone who is interested in the news should never trust just one source.
Yeah,
You need to check two, three, four sources for information and see how they. Because if you're reading from four or five different sources and they're all reporting the same story, you're likely getting an accurate picture. If they're all
yeah,
wildly different, then that's something to explore too. Why are the
yeah,
interpretations so
yeah,
different?
something might be wrong.
Anyway, we could go into that in more detail, but I want to see your next photo. All
Ah,
right. Please share it. It's a wonderful photo. Please share with our audience who is Maria Ressa.
so Maria Ressa is a Filipino American journalist. She studied in the United States and worked in Southeast Asia in Jakarta before she started Rappler. It's an independent media in the Philippines. I believe that many viewers here are aware of the Rappler, especially those in the Philippines. So Rappler is an independent media that isn't afraid of exposing extrajudicial killings in the Philippines. And the extensive reporting from the media made the government in the country trying to restrict the company operation by several legal suit. One of them is tax evasion, for instance. Um, so while the company, the media Rappler, receives a lot of challenges from the government in the country, Rappler is still trying to expose the truth, what is really happening in the Philippines, especially for those for the international audience. Um, yeah, during
And
the presidency.
And she has inspired so many journalists to push boundaries to get stories out. And she was
Mhm,
recognized in 2021 with a Nobel Peace Prize. So
mhm.
she has received a lot of recognition. I'm sure there's always complexities and two
Hmm.
sides to the story, but essentially, she is pushing against these restrictions very, very hard. And trying to get another perspective out to the Filipino people and Southeast
Yeah,
Asians in the world.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
How did you come to meet her?
Oh, it's a at the same event in Hamburg
Aha,
in 2019. So
wonderful,
I
wonderful.
got an assignment to interview her. It's such an honor, and I
That
told
is
her,
an honor. Yeah.
yeah, I'm from Indonesia, and she still understand Indonesian language, so we spoke a little bit in
Yeah.
Indonesian language. So I interviewed her, and she
Oh,
at
did
that
she?
event
Oh, that's great.
also, yeah, she also received a lifetime achievement awards from
Hmm.
the global conference. So she is
Excellent.
a highly respected journalist in the world. Yeah.
Hmm. Definitely. Let's look at your next photo.
Mhm.
All right. And who are these
Yeah.
lovely people?
So these are my colleagues at the Voice of America Indonesian service. These
Mm-hmm.
are the
Mm-hmm.
correspondents across Indonesia, and half of them are my editors, and the
Mm-hmm.
directors, the chief
Mm-hmm.
service. So this was an event to be a platform for the affiliates of VOA Indonesia in across the country. So the theme is again about the importance of press freedom, because we
Mm-hmm.
see especially in the digital age now, um, it's really easy to confuse journalism and non-journalism content. So we wanted to clarify the confusion by saying, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is mass media, and this is protected under press freedom. This is the crucial role to the society, and this is something else outside the mass media." So yeah,
Well, we need more voices, not fewer, and we
yeah.
need we need lots of different media sources, and we need government officials to be open and accessible to
Mhm,
journalists and to all these media sources so that we can
mhm.
be fully educated and aware of what is going on in our country, our region, our worlds.
Yeah,
Excellent. And
absolutely agree. Yeah.
as far as I understand, you have another photo. Ah, this is the gentleman you mentioned earlier.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. This is Udin, and
Mm-hmm.
his face is now like an icon for a press freedom. This symbolizes
Mm-hmm.
the struggle of press freedom in Indonesia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was killed more than 25 years ago, and now the murder case, isn't yeah, is unsolved.
Isn't resolved. So the
Yeah,
question remains what happened exactly? And we don't,
yeah,
you and I
exactly.
don't know the answer to that question, but we hope that doors are open so that we can all
Hmm.
find out exactly what happened. Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then I believe you have one final photo to show us.
Oh, I
One
think
more.
it's
Oh,
yeah. I think it's
okay. That's the last
I
photo.
only
All
got
right.
four.
My
Yeah.
mistake. Apologies. Uh, but wow, this time has just flown by. I don't know how that happened.
Oh.
I'm enjoying talking to you so much. I wish I had another 30 minutes, another hour. So please, in the final minutes that we have,
Mhm.
do you have some final thoughts that you would like to share about press freedom and life as a journalist that you haven't had a chance to share thus far?
Yeah, I think I have a message to the public, to the audience. Press freedom is really crucial. It's just like windows to our house. It ensures free flow of information. So
Hmm.
it really needs to be supported, and I believe that media needs support from the public, whether it's reader membership or subscriptions. So please, if you see reputable media sources and you like the journalism works that they have done, please support them financially. Please support them by any means you have. Share their stories, suggest it to your peers, because I think that's the only way. By having the public support, that's the only way the media will survive and also continue serving the public.
Those are wonderful thoughts, and I've never quite heard that metaphor about keeping your windows open and letting that fresh air in. And that's what a free press is like. It provides you with information, sustenance for your mind and your soul, and we all need more information, not less.
Yeah,
And amen to supporting media sources that are doing good work and reputable work because they everyone needs a salary. Everyone needs some financial support. So
yeah,
we do have to
yeah.
do that. Amen. I completely agree. Well, with those two final thoughts, unfortunately, I'm going to have to wrap up the conversation. Like I said, that just flew by. I'm sure you have so many more thoughts that we could have gotten to about press freedom and life as a journalist. It's a very, very rich topic, and I hope sincerely we get to meet in person and have a longer chat. So, but thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Mhm.
I'm just full of your
Mhm.
ideas. I've got so many more. Thank you so much for joining us for this time together. Really, really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation as well. Looking forward to meet you for more chats. And thank you for raising this important topic for of the World Press Freedom Day, and thank you for having me. Really happy to be part of it.
Fantastic. And thank you to our audience for joining us for another episode of The Big Idea. Do you have another idea for our show? Someone else we should interview? We're always eager to hear your thoughts and ideas. Thanks so much for joining us, and until the next time.